I am on a beard-growing mission until some school, or someone in Fairfax County actually plays a game this spring. I'm just going to keep growing this thing out. What do you think? Pretty nice, huh?
That's good.
Hey, welcome to this all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report, where you're going to be hearing a lot about other stuff besides sports because they just haven't done anything recently. A lot of weather and a lot of craziness. Although it's been bright and sunny out, no one seems to play any sports around here. So stick with us for this fulfilling hour of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Paul Frummelt, Eric Gilmore, and Dave Bushenfeld. These two guys of the Connection newspapers here. And Dave, as every week, holding it down, joining us, docking Dave in studio with us from the Fairfax County Times, as always. And as always, we like to thank the folks that make this show possible. And, of course, that's CCI Screen Printing. Thank you, our special teammate at CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs. That's 703-978-0257. Also on the web, guys. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this thing they call the internet. You can double-click it at www.cciscreenprinting.com, again, for all your screen printing needs. And also on the web is www.tripleedgelax.com. Triple Edge Lacrosse, one of our special teammates here at the Fairfax Sports Network. Hey, we're also on the web. Just move that mouse over and double-click us. www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. There's a bunch of stories, insight, highlights, video, audio, just a wealth of information at fsn.com. Check us out. Every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report, we bring you news and notes on all the goings-on in the northern region. Dave, you've got a news and note to share with us here right at the top of the show.
That I do. Robinson graduate Craig Schaefer, a junior outside linebacker at the U.S. Naval Academy, was recently given the Admiral Mack Award, which is awarded to the player who is deemed to have improved the most during spring practice. So that's a pretty big award, and a good job for him.
That's great. I mean, a former Ram in college doing great things. Recently, a story ran about another former Ram, Lucas Caparelli, not doing great at the next level. Some mishaps there at the next level, and it's good to see some balance in the media there on a guy that is doing great things, Mac, coming out of such a great program. And on the whole, Robinson has put out a lot of good players that have come out of that program under Coach Mark Bendorf. So to see some good news as well, Dave, come out of the Rams program. Let's jump right into this, guys, and let's get kick-started with the Northern Region news and notes and the goings-on in girls soccer. Let's kick it off with West Springfield falls to Woodson. Their back-to-back loss there. They also fell to Lake Braddock last week. Lake Braddock is a team, Dave, you and I got a chance to cover, as well as Paul and others. Last year, they won their second consecutive state championship. Liz Pike left that team following that championship victory. In fact, dipped out, didn't tell anyone. We just found out when they got a new coach. So keeping us posted there. But 13 players also left that squad, seniors, 10 of which playing college soccer. And they come in and knock off one of the top-rated programs in the area. Paul, that was a pretty big win for the Lake Braddock Bruins.
One thing I noticed while covering Lake Braddock earlier on this season is the fact that when they lost to Robinson, I covered that game, and these girls were extremely upset. I saw the anger and the frustration, and that comes from caring so much about the team and how well the team does. And so I said to myself, even though they lost, I was impressed with the way they handled that loss. I mean, you could say handle it with grace and class. They did, but you could see kind of underneath the facade, if you will, how angry they were about losing that game. And I said, well, they're going to do everything they can to continue to improve.
Well, yeah, and that's a program that has put 32 players in the last 8 years in college soccer under Coach Liz Pike, who, led that team to 2 state championships back-to-back. It's a program that is one of the more storied programs in the northern region and in the state. And to lose so many and so much from one team that did so many great things, when you're a young player, you expect that you're going to follow in those footsteps and also have such success. And I got a chance to catch up with Coach Adam Seuss, brother of Joe Seuss, the Lake Braddock boys soccer coach as well. And basically what he said was, I've been preaching progress by inches, and it's good for these girls to see that it doesn't all have to come at once. An interesting storyline from the victory over West Springfield, which was a 3-1 victory. They poured in a goal there in the last 30 seconds to make it look a lot worse than it was. But they were up at the half. West Springfield scored first, and Paul, going with something you said, was they didn't hang their head. They came back, and they won that game, and they had a midfielder in goal. Caitlin Landsman, the starting goalkeeper for the Bruins, out with a club team commitment. And then you've got Liz Morgan, who's been injured, the backup. So they turn to just the midfielder, stick her in the net. She makes key saves down the stretch against a team that is one of the highest scoring offenses in the area, 3.5 goals a game. They've scored 7 goals in 3 or more games, 6 goals in 3 games this year. So that's a quite capable offense. And for just a midfielder to get in there against one of the top-rated teams, Christine Tubner had such a great performance. Dave, you got to wonder, is this the start of Lake Braddock coming out of what was perceived as a rebuilding season?
Well, when you look at Lake Braddock the last 2 years, although they won the state titles, they had some losses sprinkled in there. You know, they fell to Centerville in both region finals both years, but they always seem to be the last one standing. So with so many young players, it'll be interesting to see if they can be the last one standing again.
The Bruins didn't win the district title last year. That was West Springfield.
Well, I mean, you look at the tilts that these two teams have had. Lake Braddock goes and nips West Springfield last year 2-1. And then West Springfield comes back there in the district title game. West Springfield takes it. And obviously, Lake Braddock goes and gets the state championship. At the same point, on the other side of the coin, West Springfield is a team that's been up and down here the last 3 games, losing 2 of 3. The Woodson game here just last night, the 3-0 game. At the same point, I talked to the West Springfield girls right after, actually the next day, when they beat T.C. Williams. It took them 8 seconds at the start of that game to put one in net. That's how mad they were after that Lake Braddock loss. Clearly didn't have the same effect going against Woodson. They've got a big game coming up against South County. But on that side of the coin, Maya Clayton obviously didn't have a good game. She wasn't there. The T.C. Williams, she had another commitment. But Katie Scanlon, Sally Gonzalez, among others, it just didn't put the ball in the hole. But they said at the same point that they could tell in the pre-games that something wasn't right, that they had been reading the rankings. They didn't have the mental focus. And Beth Ann Nowak, the junior standout goalkeeper who lost 50 pounds this past summer and isn't fully healthy, said that she could tell that something was wrong, that they did warm-ups a little differently, and so that's what they actually attributed that loss to. But you could tell that mental focus for Kelly Mastronato, for her team, it obviously wasn't there against Woodson, looking ahead to South County this coming week.
And then speaking of South County, so this South County team, this is a team that wants a little bit of revenge against West Springfield. They lost twice to the Spartans last year, once in the district final on like a 74th minute penalty kick to knock them out of the district tournament. So this is a team that really would like to get back at West Springfield. Now, the game might lose a little bit of its luster because, a week ago, this was a number 1 versus number 2 ranked team.
Yep.
Now, South County's number 1. West Springfield might follow the rankings altogether, but still a big matchup. It's okay. No, probably not. I don't know how you know they won't, but they won't.
I know. Well, I know because I know the guy that does it.
Exactly.
But no, I'll tell you this. You're right. It's a game that has lost its luster. But if you look at it from a different perspective, Lake Braddock's 4-0 in the district, okay? They're the only team right now that can claim that many victories in the district. South County doesn't have that many district victories.
But they're undefeated.
So Thursday becomes important for 2 reasons, the game between West Springfield and South County. That game becomes very important because if West Springfield loses, they're going to fall to the back of the pack. If South County loses, it's going to even things out. And then Lake Braddock has the leg up on everyone. And you wonder, what did we really accomplish here since last year? Because Lake Braddock is back, and that's really why I think Thursday's game means more to Lake Braddock than it does to anyone. And I think Lake Braddock probably is rooting for West Springfield right now to knock off South County and take some of the steam out of the Stallions.
And just like last year, another thing going on with South County, just like last year, they're a young team. I mean, last year they're a young team. Coach liked it so much, she brought up 3 freshmen. Right now, two of those freshmen have 20% of the Stallions' goals this year. Sophomore Alex Reed leads them with 8 goals 3 assists. So they're still a young team. Do they have that mental toughness? That's something I'm concerned about.
Alex Reed has incredible speed. She's one of the fastest girls in the Northern region on the soccer field. There's speed on the track, and then there's speed with a ball on your feet. And this girl has both. It's unbelievable to watch her be able to run the field with the ball on her feet, an incredible presence on the field. And she really makes South County go.
Yeah, a team not a lot of people are talking about right now is Woodson. They just knocked off West Springfield 3-0. They have 8 straight wins after starting the year 0-1-1. They're undefeated in Liberty District play. Big game coming up against Madison on Friday. They win that game, they got a good chance of getting the #1 overall seed in the Liberty District.
And then what about the Concord teams? What about Robinson? What about Westfield? What about Chantilly?
Big game on Friday, Robinson and Chantilly squaring off. That could be a pretty big, or rather, Stonebridge and Chantilly this Friday. But either way, still a big one to decide, kind of who's the front runner here in the Concord district. But looking back at Woodson, Dave, you mentioned the Cavaliers, and they have won 8 straight, and that's a team that can score in bunches. Nikki Mercier is a player, and Diana Weigel, two players there for the Cavaliers that really make them go. But when Mercier went down early season with a knee injury, they continued on without her. They won 4 or 5 games without her, and here she comes back. She scored 2 goals in the victory last night over West Springfield. So you got to wonder, you're able to balance things without your star. Your star comes back, and here you are on a roll. The Cavaliers, you think Robinson's the team to beat. I think Woodson might be the team to beat.
They could be. And, we always talk about the Concord and the Patriot teams, but in the Liberty District, you got Madison, Woodson, Stonebridge. Any 3 of those teams could possibly knock somebody off come region tournament.
Well, we all thought at the beginning of the year, this is Robinson's year. What team beat Robinson?
Stonebridge.
Exactly. So I think Stonebridge right now might be in the driver's seat.
That's right. Well, we'll see. We will see who continues driving the Northern Region girls soccer scene. As for now, we're going to steer our way out of soccer and head into our triple edge lacrosse boys lacrosse segment, guys. Let's jump into these rankings and run through who is at the top of the Northern Region when it comes to lacrosse. And I think those of you that have been watching this show throughout the year know that Chantilly has just been on a tear. They're at 9-0, the only undefeated team in the Northern Region with 179 points by the voters. This poll is done by Triple Edge Lacrosse, which polls the coaches. So this is a coaches poll. And Chantilly, coached by Kevin Broderick, is getting the respect of all the other coaches. There they are, right up at the #1 spot, taking on Oakton tomorrow. We're going to preview that game in just a minute. But Oakton, having beat Robinson, could be back to their old winning ways. This is a program that won 3 unofficial state championships. The tournament goes official, and then Robinson wins 2 in a row. So Oakton looking to get their due with official championships. You got Langley, Coach Earl Brewer, coaching them up. #3 spot there, 7-1. Robinson doing a heck of a job staying in the top 5. With Westfield, they have had Westfield's number, beating Westfield 5 straight times, all 4 times last year. A lot of people talking about Madison. I know that they're a squad that has only lost to a private school power and also one of Maryland's state champions last year. Woodson, Annandale, Lake Braddock, and West Springfield. Lake Braddock, those bottom 2 programs there in our Triple Edge Lacrosse boys poll, played a heck of a game last week. A freshman hit a game winner from his butt right in front of the goal. It was a great game. Got a chance to call that one and certainly enjoyed it. All right, guys, what do you got? Everybody wants a piece of these rankings. Tell me what you got on your mind.
Well, I was very disappointed when the Chantilly-Oakton game got rained out last night. They're going to be playing Thursday. I got to see Oakton beat Robinson on Friday. Great game. And Oakton does appear to have their swagger back from those championship teams, talking about reestablishing their dynasty, all that kind of thing. They're only 6-3 overall, but they're 5-0 in the Concord District. Those 3 losses came to Georgetown, Prep, Landon, and Bullis. They're kind of taking the route of a TC Williams basketball team, playing the private school powerhouses, getting them ready for the postseason tournaments. And it should be an interesting to see if they can get back up on top.
Yeah, and those 3 teams are no slouches. Georgetown Prep right now, according to laxpower.com, is ranked 16th in the nation. So obviously they're no slouch. All of the IAC teams, top to bottom, the private schools around here really do dominate.
Well, Dave, I know you checked out the Oakton-Robinson game. You know who else did? head coach Kevin Broderick from Chantilly. He was there with his staff. They made a game plan. They were all set to play last night. I was all set to go. Dave was all set to go.
I was ready to call it.
BJ was going to call it. It was going to be a great time, and obviously the rain delays happened, but these coaches are prepared. Broderick already has his game plan. He's going to shelve it for a day. They're going through walkthroughs today, getting ready to play tomorrow. So, God willing, they're going to play tomorrow.
All right, well, we'll see if Mother Nature holds up for the FSN Game of the Week. Oakton and Chantilly squaring off. That one's a big one, Dave, and we're all planning on being there. But some of the stars for Chantilly, when you walk through that program and who they've got, I mean, this is a program that is scoring in the teens when it comes to goals. They're not just, let me hit you with 7 goals, 8 goals. They're scoring 13, 14 goals in every game.
Well, it's all about the senior leadership. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. They have 16 seniors on that team, so many different weapons. And then you look at Robinson this year, sitting at 5-5 overall. They lost 18 seniors from last year's team. People might be counting them out, but a lot of people forget that 2 years ago, in their first state title year, they started off 4-5 and were only the number 3 seed going into the district tournament. They ended up winning the district title, lost to Woodson in the region final, but then ended up bouncing back and beating Oakton in the state final. So I wouldn't count them out quite yet.
One thing I noticed when looking at these rankings, and we know that it's been, Oakton and Robinson winning state titles for the last 5 years, but looking at these rankings, I mean, you don't realize how many good teams, good lacrosse teams that we have in the northern region. Most of the teams that you see, I mean, they're synonymous with successful programs. You have, Madison and Woodson and Langley always fighting it out in the Liberty, West Springfield, Lake Braddock, Annandale always fighting it out in the Patriots. So we have some great lacrosse coming up here in these district tournaments, and I'm happy that we got some new teams. We got the Chantilly's coming up. We got Langley still there at number 3 because it makes things interesting.
Absolutely. Langley is a program that's got some stars. They always had. It's never been a shortage of talent over there. They're pretty strong in the midfield. They'll see if they'll be able to continue scoring, and they certainly have. 7-1 on the season, right there at the number 3 spot. So they're the favored team in the Liberty District, and I wonder what's going to happen when Langley faces off with Woodson. And they'll get a chance to see each other a couple times this year, but that's a game that can always go either way. I was at it last year, Paul.
Yeah.
And, Langley was taking it to Woodson at Langley, and Woodson came back and scored 5 or 6 goals to win that game, and not just win it, but win it outright.
Goalie Ross Fernandez had himself a goal as well.
Right, and it was just one of those games that turned on a dime, and that's the same situation we were in with Lake Braddock and West Springfield. West Springfield was dominating Lake Braddock at Lake Braddock, but Lake Braddock couldn't get any really good shots on goal. They were getting shots, but nothing was really finding the back of the net. And in the second half, they were down 5 goals. They stormed back and hit the game winner with 16 seconds to go. And those are the kind of games you get in the Northern Region, Paul, speaking to your point about the parity.
Yeah, you talk about the Patriot District. A team that's very interesting to me is Annandale. They beat Lake Braddock earlier this year by a goal, lost to West Springfield by a goal. But coming down the stretch, it's going to be interesting to see which one of those 3 teams comes out on top in the Patriot.
You look at Westfield, guys. Is Westfield a team that, they've certainly fallen in the rankings to number 5. Many people believe that this was the team to beat coming into the season. I think a lot of people knew Chantilly was going to be good. But Westfield, I still think Westfield has got a good fight in this one, right there at the 5 spot. Even though they lost to Robinson, I still think Westfield, when the time is right, those 18 seniors that have been through it all, if you will, together, if there's ever a year for the Bulldogs to win it, it's got to be this year with all the weapons that they've got and all the seniors they've got.
Well, I think on any given night they could beat anybody out there. But again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I think they have a little bit of a mental block against Robinson.
Steal my line.
Sorry. So as long as they don't face Robinson in the postseason, I think they have a shot. But I think the Rams have their number.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't know about that, though, because I think after 5 times you go into that game pretty loose, knowing, all right, look, they've beaten us up.
At a
We
point,
got
there's
nothing to lose.
yeah.
We're going to go in there and let it all hang out. They really took it to Robinson early in the season, a game that we also got a chance to call as well. And just things just didn't go their way in the end. But I think it would almost be good if they saw them early and got past them. If they were to see Robinson early in the playoffs, get past Robinson, I think that could catapult Westfield because they already know, look, we just beat the team that's cost us so much. Then again, Chantilly guys, do they have the postseason experience to continue this kind of success they're having here in the regular season.
They don't, but they have experience in general. We talked about this senior leadership that will just refuse to lose. You don't have to have, well, some may disagree, but I believe that if you have that experience, you have the big game experience that they're gaining every time they play these big teams, big game experience, postseason experience. I mean, I think they go hand in hand, and they're getting it each game they win.
And they don't know how good they are. They're trying to take it one game
Well,
at a time. They're
yeah.
not listening to the hype. Everybody thinks they're going to run away with the region title, but they think that they're going to have to fight for every game.
That all comes from Coach Broderick. He's a very even-keel guy.
And we talked to him last week, and they've never won a district title. And so, you talk about that big game experience. The question is, when the limelight goes straight to them, what are they going to do? Granted, they've got all this senior leadership, but that senior leadership is really going to be tested when come district tournament time, and when the tournaments do happen, that's one game and you're done. And the regular season doesn't matter, even though they got that seed. So the fact that they've never won a district title, to me, although talented, is quite telling.
Let's take one more look at our Triple Edge boys lacrosse rankings here on your Triple Edge lacrosse segment here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Chantilly right up at the top, undefeated at 9-0 with 179. Well, just give them the 180, will you? Give them the 180 points, you voters. The Chargers right there at the top, they're going to face off in what could be the game of the year, Chantilly and Oakton on Thursday. Those two programs doing battle at Oakton High School. Check it out. Going to be a good one. Some great lacrosse on display between Kevin Broderick's Chargers and Tony Gray's Cougars at Oakton. Tony Gray's been doing this for quite a long time. Has played college lacrosse himself and knows the Northern Region landscape. And Paul, you mentioned that Chantilly coach Kevin Broderick is going to be prepared. I can tell you, Oakton coach Tony Gray going to bring some of that same preparation to the table when those two go at it tomorrow. Langley and Robinson right there at the 3 and 4 spot. Langley, a team that could win the Liberty District title, but you know that either Madison or Woodson will be there. Madison, I think, is the sleeper in the Northern Region. Robinson, Westfield, Madison, and Woodson. Annandale, also another sleeper. Not quite sure what to make of the Adams, Dave.
Let's think about what that Concord District tournament is going to be like this year. If the 4 teams get to the semis that we think are going to, you got Chantilly, Oakton, Robinson, and Westfield. That's going to be a heck of a tournament.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Well, but actually, I got nothing else to say. Thank you, Dave.
Let's wrap them up. One last look here at the rankings. When you look at Annandale at the number 8 spot, and then Lake Braddock right there at number 9 with the Spartans of West Springfield. That is a heck of an offense with Chad McRae, the big presence, the midfielder, can do a lot of different things for that squad. We'll see if Stephen Vu as well, who had 3 goals early against Lake Braddock, can continue his scoring ways. Program at just about 500 on the season. So we'll see how things shape up in the Northern Region boys lacrosse scene when we come back. It's girls lacrosse, your favorite part of this show, and that's when Monica Moore joins us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis, and I'm joined now by Monica Moore for this Triple Edge girls lacrosse segment. Monica, every week, joining us for bringing us the action on girls lacrosse action in the Northern Region, and it's no different this week. Monica, let's jump right into the girls rankings. Let's start there, and right up at the top is, no surprise, again, the Chargers of Chantilly. It's a clean sweep, the girls and the boys programs taking the top spots. Why don't you walk us through the top 10?
Well, yeah, Chantilly's having a great season this year. They are still undefeated, 8-0. They're just blazing through the Concord district. They had a big matchup last week, and they defeated Westfield last Thursday night, 8-5. 3 big goal scorers for Chantilly: Brittany Grill, Katie Stillwell, and Jessica Dennis, all coming up huge for Chantilly. Their goalkeeper, Heather Morral, had 8 goals in that effort. And I got to talk with their coach, Michelle Gates, after that game. And she said that while their offense was good, it was really their defense that she was really pleased with. She was really happy with the fact that Westfield didn't score a goal in the second half of the game, and she's just really pleased with how well her defense is playing. They've, of course, been affected by the weather like a lot of other teams throughout the season, but Chantilly having a great year.
Yeah, the weather has certainly played tricks on all the teams in the Northern Region and all the sports. And, You see Chantilly there at 8-0. It's pretty unbelievable that both teams are undefeated, especially you talk about, the kind of districts that they play in with the Oaktons and the Robinsons and the Westfields, and you look right there up at the top, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and for them to still be undefeated playing in that district, a pretty big accomplishment.
Definitely, and yes, Robinson, they're in the number 2 position. They had a huge game last Friday night. They played Oakton. That's been one of their biggest rivals over the past 2 years. They haven't defeated Oakton since 2006, and of course, last year in the Northern Region Final, Oakton defeated them. And finally, on Friday night, Robinson wins 14-10. During the second half of that game, it looked like Oakton was going to come away with another win. They were up 8-6, and then Robinson went on a tear. They scored 7 unanswered goals, came out with the win 14-10. That was just a huge, huge game for them. And even still, you see Oakton still in our number 3 position. They're still having a pretty good year, a bit of a rebuilding year, but their sensational senior, Ashley Kemmener, has just been coming up strong for them. She had 4 goals in that game against Robinson, and she is just, again, a contender for Northern Region Player of the Year, which she won last year.
Yeah, headed to JMU. Good to see her back for another year. That's a program that could win another state championship. They won the first 2 official, just like the Robinson boys on the other end. The Robinson boys won the first 2 official Virginia High School League state championships. Kimner sidelined for the championship game after a red card got her kicked, but the team still got the victory, and here she is playing in her senior year with the potential maybe to go and play in another championship before she heads over to JMU. So good to see that, even though they lost to the Rams, Oakton could be vying in the mix for a state championship, and I think those 2 programs will see each other again before it's all said and done.
That could definitely be the case, and certainly there are some other teams in the Northern Region from the Liberty District who are making a name for themselves, and one that I want to spend a bit of time talking about today is the Stonebridge Bulldogs. You can see them in our rankings. They're tied in the 5th place position there with Woodson after they defeated Woodson last week. Again, they are undefeated in the Liberty District this year, and they defeated South Lakes 15-1 last week.
Wow.
In that game, 11 different Bulldogs had either goals or assists. They were led by their senior captain, Megan DiMartino, who had 4 goals and 2 assists. And not to try to influence the voters out there, but this Stonebridge team is one that you are definitely going to want to keep your eyes on. As some of our viewers know, every week I get to catch up with a lacrosse player in the region, and this week I got to talk with Megan DiMartino and was just really impressed with this team. Of course, they didn't have their coach until recently, Kristen Howard, and Megan was telling me that during the off season they got their team together and they played indoor lacrosse and they worked with velocity and did a lot of training and conditioning. They're just a really great team, and I got to ask Megan, she's having such a great season so far offensively against both Madison and Marshall. She's had 5 goals, and I asked her what the key to her offensive success has been, and she said that it's her teammates. They work so hard to get her open, to assist her and get her goals, and that she's just really pleased with how well her team is playing, and so I think they could definitely be a team to keep your eyes on.
Stonebridge, a team to keep your eyes on, and keep your eyes on this Triple Edge girls lacrosse segment. I'm joined by Monica Moore here on the Fairfax Sports Report, and Monica got a chance to catch up with Megan DiMartino. You can read that interview at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Monica, let's jump back into these rankings as the Stonebridge Bulldogs there tied in the 5th place spot with WT Woodson. This is a program under Jen Carr, who I believe has gone changed her name on us there. Jen Carr bringing this program back up the rankings there, tied in the 5th place spot at 5-2 on the season.
Well, and some people thought that loss to Stonebridge last week was shocking. Again, I've been saying all season, I think the Stonebridge team is such a good team. I wouldn't call that an upset by any means, but some people throughout the region shocked by that loss last week to Stonebridge. Now, jumping back into the Concord District, there's another team I definitely want to talk about, and that is the Herndon Hornets. They are a team that is just really coming on strong during the second half of district play. They've had 2 really big wins lately. First of all, they defeated that Robinson team that I talked about a little earlier. During that game, Robinson was up 10-5, and it just absolutely looked like they were going to run away with it. And then Herndon scored 7 goals of their own to come back and win 12-11. And
Wow.
if you talk to the people over in the Herndon program, they're calling that the biggest win in their program's history. That was such a huge night for Herndon. And then they squared off against Fairfax and defeated them 20-7.
Wow.
2 of their players had really big nights. Leslie Buckingham and Liz Mann both had 5 goals apiece. And they also have some great senior leadership back on defense with Emily Baumgartner and Lauren Benzer. So again, the Herndon Hornets, another team to keep your eyes on. They're playing Chantilly tonight at Herndon, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that game.
It's funny, a lot of teams usually they play on Tuesdays and Fridays, but because of the weather and having mixed up so much in the northern region, a lot of teams playing tonight. Monica, as we speak here, as we tape the show on Wednesday night in the FSN studios, I'm joined by Monica Moore here for the Triple Edge Girls Lacrosse segment. Monica, Herndon off to a great start at 4-4, but no surprise that Langley is in the top 10. Usually, though, Langley's a team that usually right about the top 5, and with a 5-3 record, you wonder if there's some work to be done for the Saxons.
Yeah, I recently read an article where Coach DeSoma over at Langley was saying that they're just not where they want to be at this stage of the season. They're not having the season that they wanted to have. Langley's, of course, the 2-time Liberty District champion. They're the defending Liberty District champion, certainly looking to make a run when the district championships come up, but just haven't had the season they wanted, but yet still in our number 9 position. And then finally want to talk about some teams from the Patriot District. You see South County, they're holding strong in our 10th place position. Their only loss in the Patriot District to Annandale, who we have in our number 7 position. And South County, again, another team that I'm really impressed with this season. They played Hayfield on Saturday, another team that's been messed up by the weather. They're having to play on Saturdays now, but that was a huge win against Hayfield, 15-5. And there is one player that I have to talk about from that game. They have a freshman, Erica Benzer. I talked about Lauren Benzer earlier from Herndon. This is Erica Benzer over at South County. The freshman had 7 goals against Hayfield. That was quite an effort from her, and not to be upstaged. Her teammate Jenna Brock had 5 goals, and so a big day for them. I got to talk with their coach, Barbara Mahoney, after that game, and she said that one thing she was really pleased with during that effort was how many of their goals were assisted. That's something that they've been working on in practice that she hadn't seen a lot of this season, and she was really happy in that Hayfield game that had paid off.
All right, speaking of paying off, let's get into these rankings and give you, the viewers at home who have stuck with us through this girls lacrosse segment, the payoff. Let's get back into these rankings for one final look. Remember, you can find these rankings at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com every week, also at tripleedgelax.com. Look, Chantilly right up at the top, and it's no secret why. The Chargers are undefeated. Monica Robinson right there behind them, having come off a big victory over Oakton, the returning 2-time Virginia High School League state champion, and then Westfield. So it's all 4 powers from the Concord District right up at the top of the Northern Region lacrosse poll. And then it's Stonebridge and Woodson in a 5th place tie, both teams coming out of the Liberty District. Annandale out of the Patriot, and one of the only teams in this poll from the Patriot, other than South County down there in the 10th spot. You round it out with another Concord team from Herndon. And then it's Langley looking to make a name for itself this season. It's been a big name throughout the years. Can the Saxons make a new name for themselves under coach Richard DeSoma? I want to thank Monica Moore for joining us here on this Triple Edge Girls Lacrosse segment on the Fairfax Sports Report. Come back for more. The boys are coming back. We're going to talk softball, baseball, and anything else we can find to talk about here on this all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. I want to thank Monica Moore for joining us here on this all-new episode. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Paul Frummelt and Eric Gilmore, both of the Connection newspapers, and Dave Buchenfeld down there on the end of the Fairfax County Times, the sports editor there, does a great job in the northern region covering all the teams. These are your local scribes. You see their bylines all the time. And if you want to get a chance to ask these guys a question, go to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com and shoot us an email. We'll make sure to get back to you. There it is, comments@fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. All right, guys, speaking of comments, Paul Frummelt's got some great comments for us when it comes to softball. Walk us through the Northern Region softball scene. Paul Frummelt, you're on the clock. Go.
Well, the team that everybody's talking about, the team that we started talking about, was the Centerville Wildcats, and they've done their job. Okay. They've done their job. That they're doing quite well. They haven't lost to a Northern Region opponent this year, BJ. I know you know that.
I do.
So they got a scare last night, Tuesday night, when they faced Robinson, and Brienne Peace gave up 6 runs. The first time they've given up more than 3 runs in a game this year. They gave up 6 runs in 1 inning to the Rams, the reigning Northern Region champs. And Centerville came back. They got 3 in the 6th. They got 3 in the 7th to tie it, and then scored in the 9th to get the win. So obviously that was a big scare. I talked to Coach Rich Fairfax after, and he said that was a big scare. But one thing that was key for the Rams was the fact that the key for the Wildcats was the fact that they have 2 pitchers. Brienne wasn't doing quite well. I mean, obviously getting up 6 runs in that inning, and then so they bring in Jessica Farrick, and she comes in, shuts the Rams down for the rest of the game. There you go. You got yourself a win. So one thing we're seeing is the fact that dual pitchers are becoming more and more important in Northern softball.
You're right. And usually it's all right. Here's my ace. You remember Pirro over at Westfield, and there's always been those talented pitchers that have come through, and it's always been here's my ace, and try to beat her. And you mentioned, Paul, a lot of dual pitching this year. Is that a sign of maybe a lack of talent on the mound, or is it a sign of this is a shift in tradition in the sport and what teams are looking to do?
Well, not every team is going to have a Caitlin De La Haba from Broad Run or Julia Mueller from Paul VI, but they have very talented pitchers. They're different. I mean, Brienne has the movement. Jessica Farrick has the speed. So all of a sudden you see a different style come in, and it throws you off guard, and your bat's too slow, your bat's too fast, you can't pick up the movement, and it hurts you.
Speaking of movement, let's move it over to Eric Gilmore.
Ooh.
Well, a team that no one's really talking about right now is Yorktown, and granted, it is the National District, and the coach at Mount Vernon said everybody pokes fun at the National District. But the fact is, 97-5, the Patriots have outscored their National District opponents, obviously undefeated in that. The only time they gave up any runs was a 20-5 beatdown over Mount Vernon. That game happened last Thursday night. Bree Hannafin, Lauren Wilson, Annie Blaine. This team is absolutely loaded for Al Richardson in his first year, who's of the Nova Flames organization, softball organization. But Yorktown, like I said, the coach at Mount Vernon thinks that they are the premier team in the Northern region, not only in the National District. Right now, and I said even Centerville. He said even Centerville, and he would know. He was at Lake Braddock for 5 years. So Yorktown right now, top to bottom, they're deep. He said number 17 could start for him. I don't know if that's any indication of the second place Mount Vernon team, but the fact is Yorktown just reeling through the National District. I preface that with the fact that the National District isn't very good.
Well, we've been talking a lot about Centerville. They're 12-2, deserve the praise. Another team that's sitting at 12-2, Madison. Not a lot of people talking about them. They're 6-1 in the Liberty District. Their one loss came to Langley. 2 of them are fighting it out for the Liberty District title over there.
And you have a Casey Goddard who is a great pitcher and doesn't need a backup.
Got a chance to talk to Coach Wayne Martin today, and they're squaring off with O'Connell as we speak. That private school power matchup, when you go in there against a private school, and we talked about this when we talked about boys lacrosse. You go in there and sometimes expected to take your lumps, but a Madison team, they're pretty good. They could knock off a private school power.
Well, here's one thing that I wanted to talk about and expect to be reading about this next week in the Connection newspapers is you have most of the top tier Northern Region softball teams are playing O'Connell. Paul VI is right down the street. Paul VI beat O'Connell this year. I mean, this is a power in softball now. Paul VI, same with baseball. Paul VI baseball is doing lights out. Why aren't more Northern Region teams scheduling Paul VI instead of a team like O'Connell, which is a little bit of a travel?
Well, I'll tell you why. The fact is O'Connell has beaten Paul VI every time they've ever played each other except for 3 times, and that was the first time they lost to Paul VI since 1999. As a matter of fact, it's the first time they lost a league game since 1999. We talked about the pitching depth. The fact is all these cancellations, all these rain games that are being postponed until later this season, it really affects these private schools who are playing a lot more games top to bottom because they have many more teams in the league. But we talked about, I mean, it's almost like running backs in the NFL. I mean, some teams are going to like a power horse running back and give them the ball 30 times, but you're seeing the trend going to more complementary backs. One person that's going to bring the heat, and another person who's maybe going to have some location with respect to the pitching. But they're going to need this pitching depth because they're playing night after night. These public school teams are, especially in the latter course of the season when the arms start to hurt. So these teams with 2 pitchers like Yorktown, could possibly end up, being the region champions rather than one of these teams that has one preeminent pitcher.
Like Centerville, like South County. These are some of the top teams. These are teams that use dual pitchers.
All right, Paul, you are our in-house Northern Region girls
let's not go
softball
crazy.
expert. So why don't you walk us through who could be some of the sleepers out there that no one's really talking about? We've hit on Yorktown. There's a potential for Langley, maybe under Coach Bob Moreau, to make a rise in that Liberty district.
Langley's right now they appear to be a sleeper because Madison's doing so well. But Langley is a team that has done so well in the Liberty district year in and year out. What about Stonebridge? I mean, Stonebridge is performing well. I mean, that Liberty is just beating each other up, and Dave knows a little bit about that Liberty.
Yeah, well, you mentioned South County. They're also a great team. They're 10-3 right now, 7-0 in the Patriot District. Just had a big win over Hayfield Friday night, 4-1 over the Hawks, who are sitting in second place in the Patriot District. I think South County could make some noise.
And Westfield always is a decent team in the Concord District. They always do well. They lost a lot of talent this year, and Coach Dean Farrington was kind of telling me, let's not get too excited about Westfield this year. As he said, we're just learning to tie our shoes. They only lost to Centerville 3-2. So that says something.
At the same point, you're bringing it back to South County. Obviously, they're the premier team in the Patriot District, but I'll almost contend that the Patriot District isn't any good. I said the National wasn't any good other than Yorktown, but top to bottom, Westpo goes and loses to both South County and Hayfield by considerable margins, and they've since won 4 straight. There's a bottom dwellers in the Patriot District just aren't very good, and that includes T.C. Williams that lost the last 2 games to Hayfield and Westpo by 20-0 scores and haven't won a game in 2 years. But Lee, Annandale, T.C. Williams, some of these teams at the bottom of the Patriot District aren't good. So it's creating kind of a different balance within the Patriots.
I see what you're saying about the Patriot District having a top-heavy league, but don't say they're not any good, because you've got your Braddocks and your West Springfields that have been traditional powers in the area. So you can't write them.
They may be.
You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, at the same time, Lake Braddock's got a new coach, and they're about a 500 team right now. There's a lot of talent over there, and I know they've had some issues with some coaches, but Lake Braddock's not a premier team like they have been.
All right, Dave, you're going to chime in over there. What's
Well,
up?
I'm glad that he brought up Westfield a second ago. This is a team that lost pretty much their best pitcher, shortstops, almost the best player at every position last year. And they only lost to Centerville by 1 run. They know how to win. They can make some noise.
And what about Robinson? Northern Region champs. They beat the first game when they play Centerville, they lose 8-1. Next game, they lose by 1 run in 9 innings. So I know we're using Centerville as kind of the litmus test, but they are right now the top team, so we should use them as a litmus test.
Well, Robinson is a team that.
Thank you, Bill Nye the Science.
Yeah. Robinson, though, is
I'm
the
not
team
talking
to
anymore.
beat still, I'd say, because the Rams, well, they have had the most success in the postseason as of recent guys. So maybe it's Robinson's team that might be the team to beat this year. I don't know. Stick with us on the Fairfax Sports Report throughout the rest of the spring season, and you'll find out as we bring you updates every week. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Paul Frummelt and Eric Gilmore, both of the Connection newspapers. And then you've got Dave Buchenfeld down there on the end. Let's jump into baseball for our last 10 minutes of this knockdown, drag-out episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. And when it comes to baseball, what do you folks at home want to see? Of course, it's the rankings. So let's give them to you. Let's jump right into those rankings. Hey, big surprise, Oakton right up at the top of the rankings.
I don't know about that.
And why would that be, Paul?
No, I'm kidding. Of course, Oakton deserves to be number 1.
Oakton, the top team in the land right now. They have made a strong case for themselves. Lake Braddock there at number 2. Chantilly at 3. And Stonebridge. Sam Plank's squad has a bunch of ballers, and they can not only throw it, but they can hit it pretty well.
Just to make sure while we're looking at the rankings, it was 2 weeks ago that I took back my statement that Madison would win the Liberty District, right?
It was 2 weeks ago.
That's been recorded.
I just wanted you to know I was getting to that.
That's been recorded.
As
It was
Madison
2 weeks
at
ago.
number 8.
I said it 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right. Well, I if you remember, there was at the beginning of the season in the preview, the stellar and great-looking host of this show, clean-shaven at this point, talked about Stonebridge
It was a
being the
happier
team.
time.
It was a happier time back then.
Games were being played.
Yes, games were being played, phones were working. South County at number 5 there with a spinning baseball behind it. Westfield number 6, and West Springfield at number 7. Bryn Renner, the do-it-all athlete. There it is, Madison at number 8. Stonebridge in the Liberty District, the team to beat Paul Fremont. McLean and Langley, 3 more teams in the Liberty District rounding out the top 10. And Dave, you and I were talking before the show. No surprise that there are that many teams in the Liberty District in the top 10 because that seems to be the league that is everybody's knocking each other off.
Definitely. And we all know that a lot of times I have beefs with some of the rankings that we have. But I just want to say I have a lot of respect for the coaches this time because I can't figure out who the best team in the Northern region is for baseball. There are so many teams beating other teams and losing to somebody else. You just can't keep them all straight. I have no idea who's going to win the region tournament this year.
There you go.
Wow.
The man from the
that's
newspaper
expert
admitting that he
opinion.
has no idea.
I don't know what I write.
I'm kidding. But you're right. And there's something to be said for that. I respect that because there's a lot of guys that try to tell you they know what's going to happen. Like myself, I'll tell you that Oakton is going to win the state championship. But that goes to the parity, Dave.
Yeah,
and the parity is out there.
Look at the Liberty District. Stonebridge was the last undefeated team in the district. They just lost to McLean. McLean lost to Madison. Madison lost to Woodson. Woodson lost to South Lakes. So if you go through all that, South Lakes should be the best team in the Liberty District.
Look at Westfield. I mean, they pound on Oakton. They pound on Chantilly. They lose to Robinson?
Kind of a crazy year, Paul. Why don't you walk us through who you think some of the top teams are right now when looking at these top teams? Obviously, we've got our top 10 to mention, but who's a team that you think not anyone's talking about enough? I know Chantilly supposedly has the pitching.
Yeah.
But I think West Springfield is another sleeper. What are some other teams out there that no one's really chatting about?
Well, I mean, you see him right here, and I'm going to say I like Woodson. I saw Woodson beat Madison, and you don't see Woodson right there, but they're one of those teams in that topsy-turvy Liberty District that they have a lot of heart, a lot of they never give up. I'm speaking in such cliches. They played to the last inning, and but really Jacob.
They gave it 110%.
110%.
All right, Dave, what do you got for us, buddy?
I like McLean.
I'm tapped out. I'm done.
I like McLean. The last couple of years, McLean's been playing everybody tough but losing. This year, they got the big win over Stonebridge, the first Northern Region team to knock them off. It looks like this is the year they could sneak up, not even sneak up on some people, but they're a legitimate threat to win the Liberty District.
You look at the Patriot District, I mean, all 3 teams have only lost 1 game within the district. South County taking out West Springfield taking out Lake Braddock. So Lake Braddock there at the number 2 slot, they've obviously got some pitching with Shane Halley. South County, Jesse Beal, the premier pitcher, and then Mike Kent, the premier pitcher at West Springfield. So the Patriots still has a lot of shaking out to do. And I think that's going to affect these rankings when things are all said and done.
Let me shake it over there to Dave.
Lake Braddock has a tough week. As we speak, they're playing West Springfield tonight, and then Friday they have to host South County. So these next 2 games could really decide things in the future.
I just figured out where I'm going on Friday.
There you go.
Some great baseball to be played yet in the Northern region, and stick with us here in these last couple minutes on the Fairfax Sports Report. We dropped some more knowledge on you guys looking at Lake Braddock right there at the number 2 spot. This is a team I haven't heard a whole lot about. Who's gotten a chance to see the Bruins, and what can you tell us about them?
Well, I saw them very early in the year playing West Springfield, and again, I was impressed. Cliche. I thought they did really well. Cliche.
Well, this is a team that's done really well. I mean, they won 16 games the last 4 years. Shane Halley going to Virginia. I mean, this is a team that's got a couple players, and the fact that they took out West Springfield, I should say something because West Springfield with Bryn Renner, the UNC football commit, and Mike Kent among others, they're a talented team, and Lake Braddock takes them out. In the game you saw. Then that should say that they're pretty talented.
Well, you mentioned Shane Halley. I'm hoping that he's not playing tonight because I would love to see Shane Halley versus Jesse Beal Friday night against South County. That would be one of the best pitching matchups you'll see all year.
Well, let's put the guys on the spot. Who's going to win the Patriot District?
Well, I think, if I could throw it out there, Lake Braddock's a great squad. I think they've got the pitching, I think they've got the defense, and I think they've got the coaching to do it. So I think you throw all those things together, and the fact that our coaches ranked them number 2, that gives me the best chance at winning this argument.
Again,
so.
South County, they made it to the region final last year. They still got that great pitching. They got great coaching from Mark Luther. I like South County.
I'm on your bandwagon, actually. South County, the fact that they went to the state semifinals, if I'm not mistaken, last year. and I lost a couple of guys, but I mean, this is a relatively young program, only third year in the school. And these guys have since acquired varsity experience, obviously a talented coach. I'm going to go with South County.
I agree with you there. They have the experience. They might not finish #1 seed in the regular season, but when it comes time for the postseason, I think they'll get it done, especially with Jesse Beal on the mound.
Definitely.
Let's go around the table again. Do the Snyder twins have enough to upset Oakton to take the Concord District Championship? Because Oakton's supposed to be the team that's going to run away with everything, not just the Concord, but the Northern region.
They're playing each other tonight again, so Oakton gets a rematch on them. Hopefully, I don't care who wins, but I think that they'll get it done and rebound from that surprising
Freudian
loss.
slip for the motion fell.
Scott Rowan's not going to be happy. No, these Snyder twins, right now we're talking about Oakton, we're talking about Chantilly's pitching. I saw these Snyder twins combine for 3 home runs, a 2-run home run, a 3-run home run, and a grand slam all in one game.
Who are they playing? On a Little League team?
They're playing their arch rival Centerville.
Okay.
But no, seriously, these two kids are so extremely good at just smacking the crap out of the ball that, you know, they can take Westfield far again, but Westfield just confuses me with their losses and their dominating wins.
Let's jump back into those rankings for just a moment. Got a chance to catch up with John Thomas over there at McLean, and he said they've got a pretty strong rotation, and that McLean really could be a team that could upset, you know, their way through a tournament. I mean, they seem to do it every year, and Coach Thomas has been very good since joining the Highlanders program. He's a former player there himself, and certainly knows how to get the most out of his kids. One guy to watch is Quinn Pippin, who went to Thomas at the end of last year and asked for the ball. He said, I want to be on the mound. And Thomas said, I'm not just going to give it to you just because you asked for it. You got to go earn it. You got a great story on Quinn Pippin at FairfaxSportsNetwork.com that you can check out for the Highlanders.
Well, we're mentioning Oakton and Westfield in the Concord District. Haven't even mentioned Chantilly. This is a team that went to Forest Park and beat Forest Park, who's a team that's favored by a lot of people to contend for the state title. They got 3 aces on the mound. They beat Westfield earlier, did lose to Oakton, but they could be a team that.
If their pitching is off, they're in trouble. And I saw them against Oakton, and their pitching was off. They were in trouble.
All right, so we've talked about the Concord and the Patriot. Who's going to win the Liberty District? I'm sticking with my pick of Stonebridge. Does anyone disagree?
Oh, Madison.
Falls back. Hey, you know what?
Jump back.
It's not a bad pick. Not a bad pick. Madison could pull off the upset. It would be an upset this year. Usually Madison's the team to beat all the way through. I'd say watch out for Langley and Foster Dunnigan and Jeff Farrell, a great coach over there. Love to watch Farrell coach a game. I've seen him get nearly kicked out of a couple, and he's a great presence on the field to watch. So certainly a great district to watch. Eric Gilmore, who's going to take the National District? Will it be Edison or Yorktown?
It will be Yorktown. Edison really not doing a whole heck of a lot this year. Actually kind of struggling. They lost a lot. John Kane, pretty much the only guy back, their catcher. But Yorktown is the team. They got off to a rough start, lost their first 3 games, but have since flexed their muscle within the district, haven't dropped a game, or undefeated. But I don't think top to bottom that they have much to contend with a lot of these teams in the Liberty and the Patriot District. But the fact is Yorktown will run to the district title. They're first in quite a while under Mike Allen.
All right, so it's going to be, by our count, Yorktown in the National, Lake Braddock, gentlemen?
South County.
I think we
South
all
County
kind of
over
went with
there.
South County.
Possibly Oakton? No, it will be Oakton.
Well,
Watch
it's
out
the
for
Concord.
Westfield. Watch out for Westfield.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Watch out for Chantilly. Watch out for Westfield.
All
Watch
right.
out for everybody. Fairfax, too.
And you know what? Watch out for us every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report. We want to thank you so much for droning through this episode with us here. This all new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. And we want to thank one of our most special teammates, CCI Screen Printing, for all your screen printing needs. At 703-978-0257. And also you can double click them on the web at www.cciscreenprinting.com. Hey, Triple Edge Lacrosse, you just got a chance to catch up with all the lacrosse news, notes, and action here on the Fairfax Sports Report in the Triple Edge Lacrosse segment, boys and girls, where you get rankings and more. You can find those rankings at tripleedgelax.com and also at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And everything we talked about here tonight and more video also available at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Well, for Paul Frummel, Dave Bluchenfeld, Eric Gilmore, Monica Moore, and the rest of the cast and crew, thanks so much for joining us here for this all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. Next week, when we come back, it's going to be an action-packed show with guests, video highlights, and more. Stick with us on the Fairfax Sports Report.
Sunshine.